You can now support Ghost Maps on Patreon. Simply look for We Are HANTU or click the link in the description. Ghost Maps, entry 107, Johor, Malaysia. I'm interviewing 3 people tonight at this coffee shop in Woodlands. All of them possess the third eye, that gift or curse to see beyond the veil of the ordinary. But other than that, they couldn't be more different from each other. My third interviewee has mostly lived peacefully with it. My second is a spiritual master. My first, however, had let the third eye affect her in what could be considered a pretty dangerous way. Her name is Kelly. I'm a different person these days, she says, before ordering herself a teo. My younger, wilder days are behind me. A mother of 2 now, Kelly has certainly turned her life around. It was only 7 years ago, while she was still in her early 20s, when Kelly was deeply into the supernatural. I kept kumantongs and toyols, she says, matter-of-factly. I captured spirits in amulets and used them to curse ex-boyfriends and people I thought were my enemies. Needless to say, Kelly visited a lot of haunted places. I didn't know back then that you could close the third eye, she says. Her parents didn't believe in the supernatural, which made her feel all the more alone. I was constantly terrified when I was a kid, she says, quietly at first. Then, with a mischievous smirk, she adds, as with anything scary though, I thought the best way to deal with it was to just confront my fears. Her smirk softens into a sad smile. I guess I might have overcorrected a little too much, she says, sounding like she's caught up in faraway thoughts and memories. It was at one of those many haunted spots where things really changed for Kelly. As our drinks arrive, I fish out my recorder, then ask her to start from the beginning. It was 2017. Kelly's friends all knew about her so-called obsession with the supernatural. Most of them tried to dissuade her. Some of them, however, actually encouraged her. A lot of the time, those quote-unquote friends were thrill seekers, she says. They'd tell me about supposedly haunted places and want to come along, hoping I'd see something. One particular friend, an ex-classmate named Faisal, had told her about an abandoned building hidden within a forested area in Johor. What made this different, though, was that Faisal didn't want to follow her. It scared him too much, which of course made me want to see it even more, she says. Kelly refuses to tell me where exactly this building was. Riding up on her motorbike one Thursday evening, it took her a while to find it. Faisal's directions weren't very precise, and navigating the forest on her bike proved to be a challenge. By the time she reached the building, it was 8 p.m. Nice and dark, just the way I liked it, she says. For a second, I catch a hint of the Kelly of 2017. A gleam in her eye that says she doesn't care whether she lives or dies. But then it's gone, and she continues with her story. Faisal had said that the building was home to a ghost king, she says, adding air quotes around the last word. The ghost king, she explains, was a female spirit. It was so vicious that all the other spirits in the building were afraid of her. Kelly's thinking was that with an entity like that, she could send much more powerful curses to the people she hated. She laughs mirthlessly and says that if she had just stopped for a moment, she would have realized this was a terrible idea. But I didn't, and I paid the price, she says. The building itself was a very large 2-story home. Its once white walls were covered in graffiti, both on the inside and out. Its windows were smashed, and within its many rooms, the remains of furniture were strewn around. The only illumination came from her phone in whatever moonlight managed to pierce the darkness. There were melted candles all around too, and occult-looking symbols painted onto the floors. Clearly, other people had the same idea as Kelly. Unlike those people, though, Kelly had real experience with summoning a spirit. She recited an incantation that only a few holy men I know are familiar with, and waited. A moment passed. Nothing seemed to happen, but then suddenly the darkness deepened, almost like all light was drained from the building. And that's when she saw it. The ghost king. She can't really describe it to me. Her memory of it always feels hazy, like she can't ever focus on the details. She can, however, tell me what she felt. She was terrified. And I hadn't been scared since I was a child, she says, shivering. The ghost king sensed her fear. When she tried to bind it, trap it, bend it to her will, she remembered that it just laughed at her. A laugh that sounded like every ghostly scream or wail she heard all her life, all melded into one. For the first time since she chose to confront her fears, Kelly ran. She ran out of the building, jumped onto her bike, and sped through the forest. She couldn't find her way out, though. Not for a long while. And no matter how fast she rode, she knew that the Ghost King was still with her. Eventually, she made her way onto a road and finally back down to Singapore. But this was only the beginning. My life turned to hell after that, she says. Her father passed away suddenly a week later. The doctors couldn't figure out what had killed him. A month after, Kelly fell violently ill. She lost her job when she didn't report to work for 2 weeks. Almost all her friends kept their distance when she told them what had happened. One friend, however, a woman named Claire, gave her the contact details of an old spiritual master named Mei Li. I went to see her at this temple in Toa Payoh, and she put me into some kind of trance, Kelly says. When Kelly awoke, the ghost king was gone. She asked Mei Li how she had rid her of such a strong entity, but Mei Li refused to answer. Instead, she told me that she knew another master who could help me close my third eye, she says. Kelly visited this second master, and ever since, she's been a changed woman. This is probably one of the few times I've spoken about it, she says. I can never be too sure what would happen if I talk about them. I ask her what made her think it was okay to speak with me. She looks up, then looks beyond me and smiles. She said I could trust you, Kelly says, pointing to someone behind me. I turn to see my second interviewee for the night, Mei Li, along with something else beside her. I blink and I look again. The spiritual master is alone now. But I know better. Something is going on. If you want to discover more of Southeast Asia's other side, subscribe now and follow us on social media. You can also be one of our supporters on Patreon. Look for We Are HANTU or click the links in the description. Ghost Maps is a HANTU production created by Kyle Ong and Wayne Ray, with art direction by Jolene Lim, and recorded on Audio Technica mics.